the Olympics are going on right now, believe it or not, the Winter Olympics in Beijing. And the athletic part of the Olympics has been almost entirely overshadowed at this point because it has turned into a political playground for international geopolitics. We have Western nations boycotting it because of Chinese human rights abuses. We have Putin teaming up with Xi Jinping, the president of China. So it is a politically rife situation. Exactly what we were talking about with Megan Rapinoe, of just the complete convergence of politics and sports. And on top of that, also sprinkle in COVID. We've got every international problem happening at the Olympics right now. So Grant, tell us a little bit. There's been some reporting on the Olympic Village in particular and some of the weird things that are being seen there by athletes.
Yeah, there was a report that came out in Reuters of a journalist who was there. I don't know if he's in the Olympic Village. He's in a hotel where like journalists and volunteers are staying. I'm not sure if it's like technically inside, but the pictures he showed are reportedly kind of the same thing that everyone's seeing all around the Olympic sort of area there in Beijing. And it's pretty dystopian looking, honestly. There's these bartenders who are wearing hazmat suits, and he sent videos and pictures of this to Twitter. They're wearing hazmat suits while they make drinks. There was another video of this like creepy tree looking robot thing that was coming towards him, spraying disinfectant spray everywhere. It looks like something that came from a creepy novel. It doesn't look like the Olympics. It doesn't look like real life, but it certainly doesn't look like the Olympics, which is supposed to be like a global celebration where everyone's happy and all the countries come together to compete. Like, it's always been a happy thing up until last year, I would say. And then this year, there have been issues before, obviously, but these last two COVID kind of tarnished Olympics have really been just interesting to see. And it's a little bit discouraging. Right.
Tara, why do you think, the Olympics has always been the symbol of, okay, everybody put your politics and your wars aside for a quick minute. We're going to have 2 weeks where we all just compete. And yes, there are lots of corruptions around the Olympics, always have been. But it seems like there's just a complete blatant ignoring of that. Why do you think that people just refuse to get past this? And do you think they should? Do you think there should be things that are just ignored for the sake of the Olympics?
I mean, honestly, I think I can't be a hypocrite because I think that there are certain things where it would probably be good to stand up. So, well, as much as I hate the petty little drama politics, I don't think it's the time to go, especially for U.S. like soccer players or any people on the U.S. team. I think it's a lot different when you're leaving the best country in the world and going to the Olympics, like the Olympic stage where every other country is supposed to look up to us. And then you're just complaining about living in America when there's people literally dying to get into America every day. To me, that's a lot different than being, oh my gosh, like China has Uyghur Muslims in basically concentration camps and no one's talking about it. And we're all just going to go there and pretend like it's not happening. Right. That's a lot different statement to me than some piddly random little US matter. And so I think that there is a time and a place for that. But I do think that people should be evaluating what we make the Olympics about, because I think if it's something that's more U.S. based, like if you're going to, for example, I'll just throw this out there, like if you were to go to the Olympics and complain about abortion rights and Roe v. Wade, it would just be kind of like, why are you talking about that at the Olympics? That's like a predominantly U.S. issue, whereas like the Chinese Communist Party having open concentration camps is obviously very, very different.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between what Megan Rapinoe was doing, like we were just talking about, saying that she doesn't think the flag represents all Americans and she doesn't think America was founded on freedom. That's different than criticizing, China for having a literal genocide happening. I think that there's a difference. I don't think it's hypocritical to say I don't think it's the time and place to talk about specific American issues, but at the same time, I do think it's a time and place to not give a voice to a communist country like China. I think both those things can be true at once.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys agree that the U.S. has diplomatically boycotted the Beijing Olympics? So no political officials, such as President Biden or anyone else, is in Beijing, but athletes still went. And there's been a lot of mixed signals on this because, politicians are saying, bad China, stop with the humanitarian oppression. But then at the same time, Nancy Pelosi this week, after saying how bad China is, she also specifically addressed U.S. athletes saying, I would say to our athletes, you're there to compete. Do not risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government because they are ruthless. And went on to warn them, go over, be careful, and make sure that you don't anger the Chinese. Play nice with the Chinese. What?
Yeah.
Blatant hypocrisy, which begs the question, should the U.S. even be at the Olympics at all?
Well, if you can't even send people over there and are telling them to be quiet, I just think that's rich coming from Nancy Pelosi,
right.
Considering that she's I'm going to kneel on the Senate floor for BLM and we're going to support the voices of the marginalized and the oppressed and all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's one thing to be like, oh, be careful, but it's a whole other thing when you're saying blatantly, oh, don't say anything. You don't want to mess with communist China. It's like, why are we sending U.S. citizens then to a potentially dangerous situation?
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think it's just disheartening.
Absolutely.
I'm honestly kind of split on the question of whether we should have allowed athletes to go. As a country, obviously we have the right to diplomatically boycott, which we did. I don't know that it's really within the U.S.'s rights to say, if you're an athlete, we're not going to allow you to go. I mean, I guess they could do that. I don't know if I would support something like that. It seems like it should be the athlete's choice. If they want to go do that, then that's great. But at the same time, I think it's ridiculous still for Nancy Pelosi to say that they can't be making any comments. I don't think that, as bad as China is, they're not going to snipe a U.S. person in the middle of the Olympics. They're not going to do. I doubt that they would do anything like that during the Olympics.
Yeah, they just get dragged off to the gulag after their
yeah,
performance.
that's true. I think, though, that the United States athletes can choose where they want to go, and they can choose for themselves whether they want to speak out against China and whether that's a risk they want to take. But I don't think they need advice from Nancy Pelosi on what to talk about and not talk about.
Right.